You're curious, aren't you? About what it feels like to be literally brought back to life, when just a few hours earlier you were lying on a hospital stretcher, dying. There were only two possible outcomes. Either you get a second chance, and your body survives, or everything you've known, everything you've loved, everything you hope to do in the future, stops in a single second. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Poyo, and today, for this first storytime video, I want to talk about a moment from my childhood. The moment when I was in intensive care. In this video, I'll explain why and how I ended up in that hospital ward. I'll talk about the room, the activities I used to do there, and at the end, I'll try to share a lesson, or at least reflect on it, because I'm not the same person I was back then. Also, I apologize if this video isn't that great. It's my first time doing something like this, so I'm experimenting. We can begin now.
Okay.
During a large part of my childhood and teenage years, and even until recently, I had many medical problems. I went through several surgeries, severe allergies, and times when my body would lose almost everything it needed to function, along with other complications. To help me survive during those years, I was fed through parenteral nutrition. It was a medical liquid that replaced food, stored in a large red bag that had to be kept in the fridge. Then, during a medical procedure, it was placed in a pump so the liquid could slowly flow through my central catheter, which was connected to my chest. And one day, as far as I remember, in 2015, one evening, the liquid that was feeding me went into my lungs. It filled them and slowly caused them to stick together. It hurt terribly, and I felt extremely unwell that night. An ambulance came to my home, and I left with my dad to go to the hospital emergency room. And that's when it felt like the scene from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 at the beginning of the game, with the protagonist Soap being carried on a stretcher, drifting in and out of consciousness, with brief flashes where he wakes up and then fades again. It was the same thing for me. At one point, I woke up in the helicopter. I could see the people around me and hear the sound of the rotors, even though I had headphones on my ears. I remember the moment we landed on the helipad. My father had driven from my small town, and I could see people around me as they carried the stretcher down. The last thing I remember was being in a kind of waiting room with the helicopter crew. I asked for a lemon lollipop, because I've always loved the lemon lollipops at the hospital. What I mean is that, as I was slowly dying back then, and even though it's been a long time now, maybe some parts come from my imagination, but to me it's still very clear, and that's how I remember it happening. Then everything went completely dark for 16 days of induced coma. My body was lying in a bed, not moving anymore, just thinking. Because I had a dream. I remember the dream I had while I was in my coma. In my dream, I was at home in a hospital bed. The lights were on and I was watching TV. On the TV, there was an animated movie about a girl who had been shrunk, and she was having adventures with characters from books inside a library with large windows. There was a scene where she looked at her father from far away, too small for him to see her. And on my right, there was a door leading to the garden. The garden was in complete darkness, but I could hear and see that all my doctors and my family were having a barbecue there. I remember that I then woke up with several nurses around me, trying to remove the tube that was in my throat. I also remember that, according to my father, when I woke up after they removed the tube, during a calmer moment, I told him that I was hungry and that I felt like I hadn't eaten for several days. Which was true, because I had been in an induced coma. Also, when you are in intensive care, you cannot eat or drink anything. My father told me that I kept complaining again and again, almost losing my mind because I wanted to drink so badly. But I couldn't. So he would give me small lollipops or things like that to help replace the water. Now that the explanations about why and how have been given, I will now explain the life and the memories of my daily experience in intensive care. The room I remember was a large rectangle. I was at the back of the room in my bed, with the machines keeping me alive behind me. To my left, there was the TV, a square television that became most of my activity. Behind me on my right, there was a window that could be opened. There was also a table, and my father would sit to my right. There was a blurred window which, from what I remember, led to the room next door, And in front of me, there was the entrance door, a door with a small window. A funny thing about that window is that I thought there was a big hub behind it, a large room with all the doors to the other hospital rooms. And I imagined the nurse's station was there too. But in reality, because I was so drugged from all the medication in my blood, when I finally got out, I realized it wasn't a big square room at all. It was just a normal hallway like any other, which was honestly a bit of a shock for me. Now I'm going to talk about my activities. I watched a lot of TV, whether it was Chica Vampiro, a love series about a teenage vampire, or Maya the Bee, when the day was just starting to rise and my room was still in darkness early in the morning. Or also Tahiti Quest, a show where families in Tahiti had to complete different challenges to win a prize. Time was very long. That's something that comes up a lot in intensive care. The time feels extremely long, and TV becomes an ally against that slowness. Even though I mostly watched cartoons because I was a bit too young and not very interested in the other channels. As a second activity, there was an elderly woman who came into my room to make me do breathing exercises. Because when your lungs have almost failed, you have to train them again so they can work properly. She gave me a plastic bottle and a cardboard straw, and I had to blow and blow and blow repeatedly to make bubbles in the bottle of water. I don't really know why, but I remember that it was annoying and that I didn't really like that person. The third activity involved the hospital staff. The nurses would come to take care of me, like washing me. They would lift me and wash me in my bed. I also had a doctor who would come to check how I was doing. I remember he told me he would bring me board games and other things to help pass the time, and that he might even come play with me. He lied, because I never got any games. The fourth activity was my father, my kind dad, who tried to come every evening after work to spend time with me. We would watch TV together. I remember how it was extremely painful for me to move my body. Sometimes my head would fall and end up in an uncomfortable position, and I would ask my father, who was sitting right next to me, to gently place my head back properly. I also remember that in another intensive care room, he had brought some games. We played tic-tac-toe together. He would come to see me. We would spend some good moments together, and then he had to leave and go back home with his usual tired and worried look. Let's move on to a few small memories here and there, little anecdotes I remember. One evening, I wanted to sleep and I turned off my lights, but there was still a bright light shining into my room, the light from the room next door coming through the window on the wall to my right. It was really annoying, so I tried to grab my remote to call the nurse, but I dropped it. And of course, I couldn't get out of bed to pick it up, so I just stayed there like an idiot, trying to call the nurses, because that light was driving me crazy. Second memory. I remember that one morning a cleaning lady opened the window on my right to air out the room, and they removed the tubes that were in my nostrils for breathing. Even though I should normally have been able to breathe properly after they were removed, since I had them every day, I still had trouble breathing, even with the window open. It felt like the oxygen had been cut off, even though there was still plenty of air in the room, so they eventually put them back on. Third memory. I remember that one evening a male nurse came into my room to do some medical procedures, something like a small operation. He stood on my right side and started preparing what he had to do. I began trying to fall asleep, because one thing I really hate in hospitals is the anesthesia mask. The smell of the mask makes me nauseous, like I'm about to throw up. Even today, if I smell it, it's an odor I find repulsive. So I tried to fall asleep, and I managed to. But I woke up in the middle of it, even though he hadn't finished preparing yet, which was frustrating. Hehe. Now that we've seen what the room looked like, and a few small memories and anecdotes, I'm going to try to explain how I felt about all of this, to explain my feelings about being in intensive care. In France, we use the word réanimation for the intensive care unit of the hospital. And I think it has more impact. Like, yeah, you were resuscitated, you were basically dead, but they brought you back to life. I could tell myself that I should live life to the fullest, because death is there, or that I should act as if this were my last day on Earth. But I don't really like that idea, because I want to live. I want to live long enough to grow old and accomplish many things, Not to constantly think that the end is already here. Yes, death exists. Maybe 2 days after posting this video, I could get hit by a car, choke on food, get attacked, or some other terrible thing that could end my life. But it's stressful and sad to live with that idea. It's like thinking that your country could be hit by a nuclear bomb. It's possible, but you shouldn't live constantly thinking about it. Instead, you should keep living and wish yourself well as you move forward.
Okay.
Like, damn, I'm only 20 years old. I almost died several times during my childhood and teenage years because of medical problems, and now I'm finally reaching adulthood with better health. But I'm arriving in a world where there's already the possibility of a third world war. And it's only March, damn it. Hope and determination are important. And I hope to live well, even if there will be problems. To have a place of my own enough to meet my needs, and the hope and the damn determination to make this YouTube channel grow so it can give good moments to others through the stories and characters I've created. Because I didn't almost die several times just to end up with nothing. And I will fight to achieve what I want. Now, medically speaking, my life is in a clean state. I don't have as many problems anymore. And if I go to the hospital now, it's mostly just to check that everything is okay. Even if I'm still being monitored, even if I almost died in 2024, and even if I still have a lot of medication in my cabinet, things are actually going well now. And it feels strange to hear my family or doctors say that I went through so much, while now I'm living through a long period where nothing bad is happening. We're reaching the end of the video. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video, where I just talked about my life. I had the idea to talk about this part of my life because I don't often see this kind of topic discussed by YouTubers who make storytime animations. I thought it might be interesting for curious people, or for people or relatives of people who have also gone through this kind of experience in their lives. For now, I don't plan to make another video like this, but if you want, you can watch Sayla, who will introduce the universe I'm creating.
Absolutely, Poyo. Between strange creatures, cute or horrifying things, religions with gods who can collapse from a simple pat on the head, living candies, and much more, it's with me that you'll discover it all. If you'd like, we've already posted our first example of a creature on the channel, the Yellorb, where I present it in a video.
And me, I'll be on the YouTube Shorts, where Pomu and I will wish you happiness, and Neros will do the things he knows how to do. If you want, you can leave a comment on the video or share it if you'd like. Thank you very much for watching the video. Don't forget to love the people you care about, and see you soon for more Poyo videos.
Bye-bye.